Hi, if you're creating the n8n workflows, one of the most challenging parts might be the credentials, especially when it comes to Google services like Google Sheets, Google Drive, Gmail, or Google Docs. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up these credentials. But before that, I want to tell you something about the authentication and credential part. Probably these days, a lot of people can start creating workflows in n8n or any other automation tool. And you want to get things done very quickly, and this part might be quite frustrating and annoying. But at the same time, this is one of the most important part of any automation workflow. And I'm talking about the connecting to different APIs, different tools, and basically the authentication and security part is the most important part. Probably you might find a way to do it very quickly. Sometimes you don't even look at what it is and how it works, but it works. But the most important part is, as soon as you want to become a designer or creator, it is important to have a good understanding about this part. So my suggestion is, in the beginning, probably you might try things out and you go very quickly. But as soon as you grasp good knowledge about what the workflow is, what the elements are, probably you need to spend more time on this part and try to learn a little bit more in-depth knowledge about authentication and credentials part, because this is important if you want to put yourself in a designer role or architect role or engineer role for the future. You really need to know more about these concepts. There are a lot of good documentations out there in different providers. For example, inside n8n there are lots of documentations about this. They are not always perfect, these documentations, but it's also not difficult today to learn about the OAuth authentication, for example, which is one of the common protocol for the APIs. So let's dive into this tutorial, and we're going to start from the Google Sheets. Now I created a workflow here, and in this workflow we're going to connect to 4 nodes. One of them is Google Sheets. I open the Google Sheets here, and for the credentials, what we need to create a new credential here. And as you can see, we have different types of credentials for Google. Sometimes we have to go through a little bit more extensive process, but sometimes we just need to sign in with Google. In this case, we have to sign in with Google. So I just sign in with Google. I choose the account that I want to sign in, and then from there I just select the permissions I want to have with this connection. So this is also important. Sometimes I see in the tutorials that people say, yeah, just select all and continue. Of course, if you're using your new Gmail account or something is not really personal, probably is not that important, but it is important to look into this information to see what kind of permissions you are giving to any automation tool. So you have to be a little bit more conscious about this, but especially when you are configuring this for a company, that you don't want to mess up with any security breach or any problems. So basically look at the permissions and see what kind of permissions you want to give. Sometimes if you want to just view the documents, probably you don't need to put the edit or create here or delete permission from the Google Drive. So in this case, I'm just selecting all and continue, and then I get the connection successful, which means that this is already connected to the Google Sheet. So I can close this window, and here, just to probably test it, we can actually choose one of the document, and from there we can choose the sheet. And hopefully, if I have some information in that Google Sheet, if I click the execute, I get the list of the rows from that Google Sheet. So that's working. Let's go to the next one. The next one is the Google Drive. If I click on the Google Drive, then I go to the credential, create a new credential. This is a little bit more complex. In this credential, we are using OAuth protocol, and for that, we need to configure the client ID and client secret. So with OAuth protocol, you also need to configure the redirect URL in your provider. In this case, it's the Google. So this actually URL is important. So you need to have it once you get to that part. So let's start with that. I told you before about the documentations from n8n. You can see the documentations here. If you click on the documentations, it gives you a really good information about the different types of Google nodes and how you can configure them. The prerequisites for all of the Google connections is the Google account. So it means that if you have a Google account, then you are really good to go for the next step. And then next to that, we need to create a Google Cloud Console project and then enable the APIs and then configure the OAuth consent screen. So let's do that. We go back to the workflow here. I already put the link. I can close here. I already put the link here. You just click on the Open Google Console. So here, when you open your account, you see the project here. I already created a project, but just to show you how it works, I'm going to create a new project here. I just name it n8n tutorials 2025, for example. Hit on create, and then the new project will be created here. And then after that, I can switch to the new project. So now I'm in the new project. Next step is to go on the left pane, and from the API services, you can choose consent screen. Then click on get started. This is what you need to do for the first time. Naming the support email. I need to put the support email. I'm going to choose the same email account that I'm actually signing here now. So next, external, next, and then contact information, next, and then agree to the terms and condition, and then continue, and then create. So this is the project configuration that should be done once. And then after that, you can click on the OAuth client. So for this one, you need to choose the application type, you choose the web application, the client name. You can actually call it web client, leave it as it is. So now here, the interesting part is the redirect URIs. So you can actually come back to the Google Drive here, the new credential, and then here we just copy the URL, the redirect URL, and then add it here. So, I did a little bit click quickly. Okay, this is already done, and we already have a client secret and a client ID, both of them, and we can actually use them. So we just copy the client ID from here and then put it here. And then from here, you can copy the client secret and then put it here. One thing else you need to make sure that you have it is the audience part. On the audience part, you need to make sure that you have a test user. Just add the test user. So I'm gonna add the same email account as a test user that I'm gonna sign in. So when you did set up everything, it might actually take a little bit of time, but it might also work right away. Let's just give it a try right away. So you just sign in and then click on account and then click on continue. And then here I need to give access to the Google Drive, and there are different permissions here. I think this is important to think every time you give this kind of permissions, just to make sure you do the right permissions. You don't have to give the old permissions all the time to any automation tool. In this case, I'm gonna just select all, but in your case, just look at the permissions you want to give, and if you only need the view permissions, you don't need to give the edit or create permission. So I click on continue, and then the connection is successful. So I can actually close this part, but this is the Google Drive account, so I can close it. So this is the name of the credential. So now what I can do is just, I have search. Okay, if I execute, I need to, that's interesting. It says Google Drive API has not been used in the project, or is it disabled? We forgot about something, and that is we need to enable the Google Drive. So you need to enable the Google Drive here. So once the Google Drive is enabled, we can go back to the workflow and give it a try. And as you can see, I can get list of the items from the Google Drive. So this is also done. And now we can go to the Gmail. For the Gmail, I create a new credential. And as you can see here, We don't need the client ID and client secret. We just sign in with Google. But before this one, I think what we need to do, we need to check if the Gmail is actually enabled. So let's go back to this screen and look for the Gmail API. So we have to enable it. So it wasn't enabled. So we enable the Gmail API, and now we go back to the workflow, and here now we can actually create a new credentials and then sign in with Google, click on the account, and then here I need to share, and here I need to accept and then continue, and then connection is successful. So now we can also connect to the Gmail. If I actually execute the setup, now I should get the old messages from the Gmail, and as you can see, it's working. So now let's go to the last one, which is a Google Doc. Let's see what is the credential for the Google Doc. With the Google Doc, we have the same actually process as we had with Google Drive, but in this case, we just need to do two things. First of all, make sure that Google Doc API is enabled, and then just copy paste the client ID and secret. Let's go here and check for the Google Doc API. Okay, Google Docs API. Now we are enabling the Google Docs API. Once it's enabled, we can go to a screen. Oh, sorry, we can go to the credentials right away. We can go to the credentials, and then from here we can open the client we created. So we just copy the client ID, and then here also the client secret. And similar to Google Drive, sign in with Google. So you click your account, continue, and here you choose the permissions. As you can see with the Google Docs, you give two permissions. One permission from Google Drive, because your Google documents are stored in Google Drive, and also the permission separately to the Google Docs. So now click on continue, and now it's successful. So this is also done. We can close this one, and now we need to give the URL or doc ID to access. I'm gonna choose one of them that I already have, just as an example, just to see if it works. So I'm gonna share one of the doc ID that I have. Okay, it works, and as you can see, now I got the content of the document here. So we learned how to set up Google credentials for different type of nodes. I think this is quite easy if you just follow the process. Also try to learn a little bit why we are doing this. It's really interesting, because then you also understand why these credentials are happening this way. And you can also use the same way for other APIs, because there are lots of other APIs that they are following the same way of protocol for connecting in terms of the security, like OAuth that we talk. So basically, if you learn this, probably in the future when you see the other API that follow the same protocol, it might be quite familiar for you how to use it and how to implement it in any automation tool. Thanks for watching this video. So see you in the next video.